Hello everyone and welcome back to Gwimb Discusses 40k Things. Alright, well last time I discussed things here, I talked about why I disliked the Alpha Legion meme, and I must admit, the reaction I got was fascinating. Everything from petty criticism to agreement to even a death threat. Been a while since I got one of those. I think when I criticised Eternal Crusade was the last time I got a death threat on the channel, so fascinating stuff. Just to address those people for a moment who gave off the really rude, petty, aggressive comments and the death threat, please seek some professional mental health advice. If your lives are that petty and pathetic that your response is to threaten death and violence upon someone criticizing a meme set in a fictional universe on the internet, then you genuinely need medical assistance, and I am more than happy to post in the description lists of numbers you can call so you can get the mental health advice you clearly need. Alright? God be with you and stay strong. Alright, so moving on from that, back to the video. I was tempted to feed the flames a bit and talk about why the Iron Warriors are overrated or the Ultramarines are actually cooler than people think, but we're going to inject some positivity into events today, and I would like to talk about the Siege of Terra series. Now, Mortis hopefully should be coming out soon, and I think we've reached about the halfway point for the Siege of Terra series, and it got me thinking all the cool things I like about the Siege of Terra series. There's been a few ups and downs. People have sort of said it's been an up and down series, which you can describe the entire Horus Heresy novel series as that. However, we're going to ignore anything negative and we're just going to focus on positive things. So, I thought we would start at the beginning with the Solar War and just talk about a few things that I liked about it. Oh, just a real minor distraction. Is it just me, or should the last novel in the Horus Heresy mainline series have been Slaves to Darkness, and A Buried Dagger should have been released before it? It just, continuity-wise, it flows a bit better if Slaves to Darkness is the last one on the list. Anyway, point being, let's carry on. So, the Solar War. I think most people agree the Solar War is definitely probably the most favourite from the people I've talked to, at least 5 people have said that they've always felt the Solar War is currently the best of the series at the moment. And I must admit, I really agree with that. I really much like the Solar War for a few reasons, and one of them is there's an attention to detail and an attention to things you wouldn't normally think about in the Solar War that I really like. The first one that really struck out to me is they actually wrote space as a three-dimensional space. So a lot of the times it kind of comes off when it's written space battles in 40k, kind of written like 18th century naval ships, broadsides and going up across each other and cutting across the bows and stuff. And they tend to forget that it's a three-dimensional space with ships going under and over and around each other and behind, and there's fighters zooming everywhere. And that's something the Solar War really did well, with the Falcon fleets and the Traitor fleets, appearing above and below the solar disk. It just really gave an idea throughout the novel that the battle was actually a three-dimensional battle occurring all around. So that was really good. As I said, the void combat in general was very good. The descriptions of the torpedoes and, coming out the Chthonic Gate and the Space Hulk and everything like that. I think the space battles are probably my favourite, definitely my favourite written that I've seen of all the space battles in the Black Library novels. I really like that very much. So that's a very good thing going on with it. Also, there's just some nice little tidbits in there that I've also very appreciate, like the destruction of Pluto's moons. I thought that was beautifully inspired, and I think that's a very cool defensive tactic. On top of the Imperial Fist tactics in the first place, trying to bleed and delay the traitors rather than, trying to destroy their ships or prevent them getting in. So the idea of the war and the void itself of being one of attrition rather than, direct combat was very cool. Also, I was just, again, I could go into a lot of detail of Solar War, but I'll keep some of the things limited. But just little tidbits that you wouldn't think about but are correct. Like how it mentions that messages are taking hours to get from Pluto to back to Terra. And that's something that in sci-fi you wouldn't think about, because you'd think, oh yes, sci-fi technology, messages are instantaneous, but it is. It's like 10, 20 years and I think like 13 years from Earth to Pluto in terms of our current spacecraft engines. So that's actually quite a long bloody way. So of course messages have to be sent back and forward between them, take a long bloody time to get back and forward to each other. So just that alone kind of shows an attention to detail that can sometimes be missed in Black Library novels. So, it's very good indeed. Zardu, Layak and Abaddon, well, let's not get into negatives, but probably the weaker of the things in the Solar War. And some people I've said, talked to, have kind of criticized how it goes from the void battle at Jupiter to the void battle over Terra very quickly, and it kind of just brushes over the Jupiter and Martian, void combats and goes straight to Terra. And I can kind of understand that. It would be nice to see it fleshed out a little more, but then you've only got one novel for the entire void battle, so you don't want to make it too long and bogged down. So overall, I think A Solar War has good detail, good plot, good characterization, and I think it's very well done. So I definitely agree that Solar War is probably one of the better ones. My favourite Saturn IX, believe it or not, but we'll get to that later. So, moving on. The second mainline novel, The Lost and the Damned. Now, again, people I've talked to have said this has been average, neither good nor bad, and I think it's pretty good. I actually quite like Lost and the Damned. It's probably one of the ones I go back and read. That and Saturn IX. I'll go back and read those ones more often than the rest of the series so far. And again, the focus on the Imperial Army and the conscripts, which is something that of course has to have happened during the siege, but you don't usually think about. Keeping it focused on one character, Katsuhiro, is nice to keeping the story grounded, but it's also good because it allows you to explore the Imperial Army, the conscripts, how things were like in the outer defences, and the utter shit show Verdun First World War level tactics that the initial siege became. And by focusing just on Katsuhiro and that section of the wall out there was actually really well done. And again, just things like mentioning why the traitors didn't just exterminatus terra, because Horus ordered them not to, because he had to kill the Emperor in person for the Chaos Gods thing. That gets rid of the plot hole and explains, that little detail. And the fact Perturabo was pissy about it is, quite fitting for his character. He would have just destroyed the planet and been done with it. So, that's actually very well done. And, again, the characterization, showing how disunited the traitor legions are, by the fact that they can't even meet together in one place without fighting with each other. It all has to be conducted over Hololith, and there's the arguments and the petty feuds and things like that. So the characterization there is well done. And then on the other side, with the Loyalists, you've got, Katsuhiro, you've got Sanguinius, and, Dawn trying to run the thing, having to deal with the problems of the Mechanicum bitching. It just goes into that extra level of detail of what's happening inside the palace. And again, there's just very good scenes. I love the White Scars sally out of the palace to attack the Dark Mechanicum siege camps. And I must admit, I love the line when Sanguinius rescues Jagatai, and Jagatai goes to Sanguinius, I've got intelligence on my jet bike. What do you think I was doing out here? Seeking glory? And Sanguinius comes back and goes, no, I thought you may have been bored. Just little lines like that stick with me in Lost and the Damned, and it goes really well into the characters of the Primarchs. And again, things like Katsuhiro, talking after meeting Sanguinius, realizing that the war, the heresy itself, the greater war around them, is really between the Marines and the Primarchs and the Emperor and Horus, and people like him, just the common, people of the Imperium, they're just basically getting in the way. They're kind of cannon fodder. They're essential, but it's a war between the legions, not a war between mankind, if you get that sort of thing. So, I really like Lost and the Damned. I think it was quite well done overall, and as I said, it's one of the ones I go back and read more frequently than the others. There are a couple of problems and criticisms I could have of it. They're definitely there, and I can see some of the people's complaints about it. But for me personally, I like Lost and the Damned, and I reckon that's pretty good. Alright, now, the infamous one of the mainline series, The First Wall. Now I must admit, there is some real stupid things in this one. There are some plots that don't go anywhere, but we're going to be positive, and we're going to just talk about what we like. So one of the things I really like about it is the detailing of the siege. Like it mentions in one section about how many bloody tanks and artillery guns and heavy weapons the Iron Warriors are bringing down to the planet. I think it's something like 5,000 basilisks and 1,500 siege guns, 2,000 dreadnoughts. Just the sheer scale of the siege and the material used was pretty awesome. And again, little tidbits as well that I find amusing, like Dawn backhanding Khan out of the way like he was nothing, after Khan nearly beat Sigismund. That's pretty cool, and it's a very memorable thing. It is followed by the other memorable scene that we don't talk about, but we're sticking positive. Euphrates Keeler and dealing with the demons inside the walls, teaming up with the Custodes. It's alright. Has some good lines from Malcador, and Euphrates and Ammon have a good buddy cop routine going, and I don't dislike that, but this is probably one of the weaker ones in the mainline series. Now, probably that subplot following that Imperial Army hive, not in the palace, that probably could have gotten rid of. It was kind of unnecessary. But anyway, positive. So, there was a couple of good depictions of combat and a few memorable lines and things in the First Wall. So, we'll move on to probably my favourite so far. I haven't read Mortis yet, but my favourite so far, Saturn IX. Now, this might sound weird, but Saturn IX, for me, is a perfect culmination of the first Horus Heresy novel in a way. And there's one particular scene that really made me think of that. It's in the arming chambers when they're all underground preparing for the ambush, and Sigismund is talking to Loken, and they're actually mentioning the same conversation they had from the first novel, the first Horus Heresy novel. And Cinderman again is bringing up some of the stuff from the first novel, and all of the major characters, the loyalist characters that are still in play from that first novel, are back in Saturn IX, meeting under things. So you have Garrow, you have Loken, you've got Cinderman, you have Dawn, you've got Sigismund, you've got Galor, Galor in the 70. I mean, even my personal favourite Indrid Haar's there. It's just a really good combination of the characters, bringing them together again through the different lens and, seeing how they've changed and developed from the heresy to now. Loken, Sigismund being a little bit more dour and cynical and, his faith having been tested. Garrow having found his faith and being more inspired. Loken, how he is now. So, just, again, the characters alone feel like in Saturn IX that they've actually gone through this change, and they're the same characters as they were in the first novel, but they're different now. So that was just hard for me to explain, but that was just one of the real tidbits I really liked out of it. But again, the novel itself is very well done, playing into the minds of Perturabo and showing how he conducts a siege, the 20 screens and how he's pressing buttons and calculating things. Dawn, taking a step back from the same thing so he can get a clearer head. Abaddon and, trying to win the war his own way. The conduction of, the Mechanicum forces and Dark Mechanicum forces. just the interplay between the loyalists and the traitors as they both try and exploit the Saturn IX fault is actually very cool and well done. So I do quite like that as well. And again, the final ambush thing at the end is brilliant. Loken killing Axamund, or Horus Axamund, is just beautiful, ironic justice. And the fact that he spends 2 minutes ripping his guts apart with a chainsaw before letting him die was quite satisfying, and I only wished Abaddon actually managed to get that fucking bolt to the head from Garrow, but oh well. Also, rest in peace, Endred Ha. I really thought you'd die fighting Horus aboard the flagship, but being slain by Abaddon after beating the shit out of him, I can accept that. But anyway, other little tidbits from that novel I very much enjoyed. Again, the Emperor's children, you know, how they've become the strength of the walls and the wall guns. Like 20,000 Emperor's children out of the 100,000 that attacked got killed in that battle. And it's just, you know, the strength of the wall guns and, you know, how powerful the defenses are. Dawn vs. Fulgrim was a fight I never thought I would see, but I very much enjoyed. And the fact that Fulgrim's such a pussy little bitch, he just runs away afterwards, is kind of amusing to me. Sanguinius dealing with the bullshit of the visions plaguing him. Yeah, kind of. It's kind of sad seeing Sanguinius all mopey, but you know, didn't take away anything from the plot. The the Eternity Wall spaceport being fallen. I like the fact that they knew it was a losing battle and they kept sort of fighting anyway. Jennifer Kroll being killed by Khan, such a sad death. I really thought she'd die fighting Angron, believe it or not. I kind of thought she'd stand against Demon Primarch Angron and get killed, but oh well. What other miscellaneous things from there I quite liked? I quite liked Jagatai Khan and Constantine Valdor fighting at Gorgon Bar. No. Colossi. Sanguinius was at Gorgon Bar. And, you know, him knowing, Jagatai knowing that Dawn's trying to handle him and him not responding to it was pretty good. Oh, one of my favourite lines, of course, is the, Valdor, Raldoron, and Jagatai are all discussing how they're going to go out and attack the next, meet the next Death Guard assault head on in the middle. And the Khan points out that technically, not Nibiran, but an Imperial Guard colonel is actually the officer in charge and he should be the one giving the order. And the colonel just goes, I'd rather strip myself naked and charge the enemy line myself than give an order to any of you three. And all three of them just burst out laughing, and it's just a great line. And having a mate who's a former soldier, that's exactly what someone would say. It's just a brilliant line, and if you listen to the audiobook version of it, it's well done. So, again, the depictions of the siege, the different characters, how the siege is conducted from the loyalist and the traitor perspective, the utter chaos of, how many, I think there are 30,000 battles being occurred on Dawn scale, with each battle representing 30,000 or no. There's 16,000 separate engagements going on around the palace, and each engagement is only registered on Dawn's perspective of having 30,000 or more combatants either side, whereas Perturabo's scale is 20,000. So that's just a scale alone of how fucking insane the siege is and how much of a clusterfuck it's become. So Saturn IX is my personal favourite of the Siege of Terra series so far. It would go Saturn IX, Lost in a Dam, then Solar War. Solar War is actually better written, but I just like Lost in a Dam a little more, so that's just for me. So, that's my favourite of the mainline series, and you'll notice I have not mentioned the infamous part of Saturn IX, because that's a bitch for another time. But yes, it's stupid on every conceivable level. So we're going to ignore it and be positive. So, I haven't read Mortis yet, but I've heard it has some pretty good stuff with the Dark Angels. It has some pretty good stuff with Titans. Apparently the B plot is okay, not brilliant, but the A plot with the Loyalist reinforcements and the Titans dueling, in the palace apparently is quite well done. So I'm looking forward to when it comes out proper and reading it. So that'll be nice. Now I haven't read any of the novellas yet though. I've heard the first one is just setting up Primera Space Marines and it's kind of a little bit wanky. And I've heard that the Fury of Magnus is a little bit contrived, was what someone said to me. They said it was a little bit contrived, but overall it was quite decent. They said quite well done. They said it was a little bit contrived, but overall quite well done. So I do need to pick it up at some point, but as I said, I'll get to it. So where to go to from here? Well, I really can't wait for the Angron vs Sanguinius. It was teased in Lost and the Damned, and I'm hoping the Breach of the Eternity Wall and Sanguinius holding the gap, fighting again Carbanda, maybe fighting Angron and beating the shit out of all the demons trying to take the breach the wall will be really awesome. That'll be something to look forward to if it's written right. But Sanguinius being a badass, they haven't fucked it up so far in the Siege series, so looking forward to that. The Loyalist reinforcements arriving. I would like to see the Loyalist reinforcements arrive and then have to slog their way through the traitor defenses they've set up around the inner system, just like the traitors had to do for the original Loyalist one. So it'd be nice to see Gilliman arrive first and then him having to slog through, and then the Lion and Russ showing up later, and just the Loyalist push. And it would also be cool if the Loyalists on Terra didn't know the Loyalist reinforcements arrived, so it was kind of one of those things of the reinforcements are there, but the Loyalists still don't know it on the surface, sort of thing. So a bit of interplay there. I'd like to see, well, of course we'd like to see the final assault on the Vengeful Spirit. That would be pretty cool, because that would be, again, that's kind of what we're waiting for. So again, the other aspect of that I'd like to see is I'd like to see the Khan's retake of the Lionsgate spaceport. And I'd like to see the what the siege became once the Emperor and everyone disappeared onto the Vengeful Spirit. What happened to the siege down below? Because we know Sigismund was put in charge of it by Dawn before he left. So just seeing what the siege was like while all the major players are fighting on the Vengeful Spirit above would be kind of cool to see as well. So overall, I'm looking forward to the continuation and conclusion of the Siege of Terra series, and I'm really hoping that the last war was a blip and everything else will be as high quality as the rest of it. So let me know what you think below, and I shall see you again, maybe with a serious topic, maybe with another infuriating topic, another time.